So we're back with the Black Podcast. Guys, we've been going at it so this is June. August will make 3 years. August the 5th of 2020 was our very first episode. And man, it's like these last 3 years have just flown by. But we're here before you today. And let me get my Conrad on stage with me. She over here repping the
Always.
sisterhood. But yeah, we're back. We're here again. This month, and I spoke with the guest. And you guys will hear a little bit more about it here in a bit. But this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness, so we're going to touch on that a little bit at the top of the show, and then we're going to go ahead and navigate into the remainder of the show. But with that being said, let me turn the mic over to my co-host, Dr. Hobson. Take it away.
Well, I'm just excited about this guest for sure. I know he has a story because something was going on with my technology, and I was like, oh, every time somebody's about to come bring the heat, something's always going on my computer. So I'm just excited about the guests that we have and the things that he's doing in his space, and definitely look forward to learning and hearing more about his story. I know that um, we take a lot of time to go through our guests and see, who all and what they're doing, and who all is involved in the community, and who has their own little space with their unique ways of contributing to our community. And so it's just so important that as our guests continue to watch, that you share the video, because without sharing, we're not doing our part supporting the Black podcast, but also supporting our community, because we never know who's in our circle that may need to hear this story. So I want to get started. I'm ready to get started. Everybody knows who I am. And so we'll give more of a little briefing at the end, but we definitely want to make sure we maximize all our time with our guests. So who do we have today?
So today we have before us none other Mr. Bernard Chandler. How's it going?
It's going well, man. Pleasure to be here before you two distinguished people, and just want to pay homage first to the work you're doing with the Black Podcast. Yeah, I think it's adding a lot of value to a space where value needs to be added, and just happy to be here with y'all tonight.
Well, we're excited. I mean, we always take our risk and say, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see if he's for real. And you responded right back and said, yeah. I said, okay, he all right. He all right in my book. But we thank you for your time. We know that your time is valuable, and we really appreciate you coming on the show. And so we like to start off with, we know that behind every glory is a story. And so we see the things that you're doing. We get to see the pictures, the 2-minute videos, or a minute video, or your 30-second, but that's all people see. And they don't know unless they know you, and knowing your story. And we know that the reason why people do the things that they're doing is because of whatever it is, whether it's your story or somebody else's story that inspired you. So we want to do that, paying it forward to our community. So let's start out with where you're from and the dynamics of your family, like how you grew up.
Yeah, so born in Dallas, Texas, lived in a suburb of Dallas called Mesquite. So I was about 15 years old, and then moved to the Mississippi Delta, Tunica, Mississippi, which is what I actually call home. That's where I graduated from high school, Roosevelt High School in Tunica, and um, yeah, like family dynamics is a two-parent home. Mom and dad both had somewhat unique professions. Mom was a career administrative assistant in corporate America, and then in the casino industry in Tunica. And dad uh, was an aircraft mechanic. Built a horizontal and vertical stabilizer on 737, 747, and even did some work on the B-2 bomber. Neither one of them have a bachelor's degree, but both of them found their path, with trade school, and, kind of teaching themselves with apprenticeships, and, just provided a great model for my brother and I. My brother is 14. He and I are 14 months apart. I'm the oldest, and yeah, we just been living in Tunica, Mississippi, and that's kind of where the story actually, in my opinion, really begins.
Okay. Well, we know that a lot of our stories we tell people all the time. Everybody comes from a different walk. You have some that come from single parent homes, and I'm like you. My parents have been together or been married for 40, 41, so I think 42 years that they have been. But my love and my passion for what I do really had nothing to do, not entirely with how I grew up, but just what I saw going on in our community and stuff like that, that I always had a heart for people. And so the way that I hustled and the way that I moved, it had a lot to do with how I was raised, how I saw my father. He was in the military 27 years, but I also saw how he would buy a car, flip it, fix it, flip it, and then we'll go to the auction and I'll see, we'll buy it for 29.95 and we'll sell it for 79.95. And so I just started learning, like, man, you can take a little and make it a lot. And so
Yeah.
but my heart for people, the way that I impact people or have the type of influence or want to have an influence in our community, was a little bit deeper with some of my stories, some of the stories of others. And so I just want, if you can just kind of go into, growing up in Mississippi, you have two-parent home, whereas the people that may be surrounded around you may not have had that same story. And so we want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into what was that like for you, being in this space where it considered, you're the lucky guy because you have mom and dad in a place where, majority may not, or just young Black men in general. So how was that for you growing up and then just being around your peers? What were the conversations that maybe you and your family had? Because I believe that that's important. That's who we start to develop who we are, our characters, through the conversations that are going on in our family. So if you can just kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's kind of a like a Cinderella story almost. Like I moved to Tunica when I was in ninth grade, and I was initially I would consider myself kind of odd compared to my other peers because I was coming from suburban Dallas, enunciated my verbs and spoke more. As some would say, proper than some of my peers in the Mississippi Delta. So initially, it was a challenge. It was a challenge to fit in. It was a challenge to really embrace my identity because embracing my identity, my two-parent home, suburban Dallas, having gone to schools that were in many cases majority white, definitely diverse, but majority white for elementary and middle school. To then move to the Mississippi Delta in Tunica, where the school was 99% black, and also like having peers I built great relationships with, experiencing levels of poverty that I had never seen. I just every black man, didn't start in poverty, and I oftentimes speak to groups, speak to educators, speak to leaders, and I start off with that because my identity may be different than what one may have stereotyped it to have been. But yeah, like that's really how it started. I was kind of odd initially, and football became my vehicle to kind of fit in. One of my best friends, Anthony Bird, just I've kind of been with him since I got to Tunica, and I remember being in the weight room in ninth grade. I'm lifting weights, like really struggling to lift weights, and I heard guys behind me laughing. And I remember Bird made the comment, man, one day this dude's gonna be better than all y'all, man. And he may have been joking himself. He may have not believed in himself. But yeah, like that's one of my first real strong connections, and one that has endured, man, since '99 to now. Like we went to high school together. He was a year ahead of me. We ended up in junior college together playing ball. Ended up in senior college, well in at Belhaven College in Jackson, Mississippi, playing ball, and it's a unique story how that came to be, and our different success paths, because one of us was extremely successful and one of us wasn't so successful in football. But it was an unlikely story for, honestly, for both of us.
And we hear that a lot, and I don't know if Brian told you earlier, but I know his background is in psychology and social work. And so mine is in education and athletics. And so that's where my love for young men started to develop, because I would see this struggle that a lot of these young men would go through that I went to high school with, that were top and, top receivers, top this, top that. And then that number just got smaller and smaller when it was time to matriculate into college. And then from there it's got even smaller, and then and then you stop hearing about those guys, and you start wondering, we just like everybody's excited, and I usually, I don't know, I get sad around the NFL, the NBA draft, because we celebrate this 1% that make it, but there's 99 that do not.
Right.
And so, are there things in place? Are there people speaking to those coaches? Are there things in place that are going to help make sure that they're successful, outside of, this athletics? And I'm sure you've seen that and experienced that on that journey. But because you grew up, maybe with mom and dad, where maybe they still talked about education, you knew the value of education, and you can use athletics as your vehicle to get to colleges, to travel around the world, to build those relationships. You get all those great things from being in athletics. But we know that that story is not the same for everyone. A lot of young men that are participating in sports are there because this is their only way out. Maybe mom and dad won't have the means to come up with the money. Maybe your parents will say, hey, even without a scholarship, we would have figured out a way, you know. And
Right.
so everyone's story is not like that. So if you can just kind of talk about, you found yourself being in this space, even at a predominantly white school, you'll find that, you know, you could be frowned upon until you can catch a ball. And then it's like, oh, he's tall. Oh, and so now you start getting all the extra help from teachers, and the, hey, how you doing, Bernard. You got the coaches slapping you in the back, so now you're starting to feel like you're a part of something, but are you really, so if you can just kind of talk about that journey, why you segued into sports, and then what happened after that. You can kind of briefly touch about maybe what happened as far as the story. You said it's a unique story, but if you can kind of give us a little brief synopsis of what
Yeah.
happened on that journey that you think is relevant and important to talk about.
Yeah, like in high school, I wanted to be the quarterback at my high school, and I had never played quarterback in Texas. The way blessings and opportunity lined up, I ended up being the quarterback my junior year. And I remember the first football game of my junior year, I lost the game with made an audible in the fourth quarter, threw an interception. Uh, Opposing defender called it, ran it back, and we lost the game like 6-0. Like I ended up throwing like 4 interceptions that game. That particular interception sealed the deal, and we lost literally 6-0. And I just remember, being a 15-year-old, and or 15, 16, however old I was, and man, how like I knew, like walking in the store in town, people were like, "There you go, right there. There you go, the dude that lost the game." And like I had followed in the footsteps of an amazing athlete that played quarterback the year before me, and just did an excellent job leading the team to like a 9-1 season before those games were we were stripped of those wins because of an ineligible player. But it didn't take away from the talent and success that was on that team. And my predecessor, a guy named Jason Dunn, was just amazing. Just watching him, compete as when I was a sophomore, was just like, man, like he was tall, he was fast, he had the bloodline. His brothers, had played professional baseball and stuff like that. They were just a family of athletes, and I was in no means like even close to being able to match his athletic ability, size, speed, none of that. But I found my way, and had a mediocre high school career. Went to college and was even it wasn't even mediocre in college. Like my college career was not a success. It was merely a vehicle that allowed me to to have exposure to to a college education, and also to probably to really my real calling, which was leadership. So Bird and I, ended up at Kahoma Community College together. It's a community college in Clarksville, Mississippi, registered HBCU. Most folks are like, how can that be an HBCU? And I'm like, HBCU stands for Historically Black College and University. So Kahoma is like near and dear to my heart. Freshman year, I was not positioned to be the starting quarterback. There were just skills I just didn't have compared to the guys I was competing against. But what did happen was I became SGA vice president. So uh, Student Government Association vice president my freshman year. Transitioning to my sophomore year, I became president. And all the while I'm playing football, not finding very much success in football, but I really started finding myself as, finding my niche as a leader, particularly a leader like having those robust conversations and the conversations that people sometimes kind of stay away from. And football was just kind of there. It wasn't something that I loved doing anymore. In high school, I would tell folks, man, I'm gonna go pro. We all thought we were gonna go pro, and then I saw what a pro prospect looked like, and I said, man, I'm gonna teach. I'll teach, because pro prospects like wake up in the morning. They don't have to stretch. They're like cheetahs. They don't stretch. They're just fast. They're just it's just innate God given talent, and that's not
I'm
that's
glad
not
you
what the
said
creative.
that because even some I'd be like, no, 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 bro. I don't know if
I,
that's your calling. But you're right. I mean, it takes a lot for someone to look at it and say, "Look, this was nice. Let me get my degree and find something else to do with myself."
Hey, I looked. It was a guy on the team named Julius McKellen from like Lakeland, Florida, I believe, or yeah, I think it was from Lakeland, Florida. And he was just a freak of nature, just fast, strong, good guy, and just like he was what a pro prospect looked like, and I was far from that. So I just channeled what I was good at. I started kind of finding my niche, and all the while, Bird was kind of finding his niche too, like because we were kind of a package deal. So I leave Kahoma and get a call from Bellhaven's head coach. That I was a good player. Of course, I had good grades. I had leadership capacity, as evidenced by my position as SGA president. And at a school like Bellhaven, football isn't like the breadwinner. It's not like going to the University of Florida or going to Ohio State. Football was an extracurricular activity that generated revenue and also gave the school an opportunity to like land students who were athletes that still contributed to everything the school needed students to contribute to. And I understood that, and I embraced that, and signed a scholarship to come down there and play. And I remember telling the coach, like, man, I'm excited about coming. They seemed really high on me, which was kind of surprising to me, but they seemed really high
Anytime you
on
have a
me, and
black quarterback, you're gonna be excited.
yeah, yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess
you
I
have
guess
to
that's
know
right.
that's already they didn't allow a lot of black men to be. And they still don't because they don't think that you're smart enough and you got the skills and the mental whatever capacity to be able to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be excited.
And you know what? And I guess I couldn't see that initially coming from Tunica, because it was all black school. We played against other schools that were, and most of them were all black. It was a few that were
All right, is it just me or am I the only one that? All right, so it looks like we may have lost temporarily Dr. Hobson and our guest, Mr. Bernard Chandler. Hold up, let me check. You guys hold tight. Hold tight. Mm,
Hey, what is going on?
I have no idea.
What happened? Well,
I don't, I don't know.
we're going to give the guests an opportunity to get on. I knew there was a story behind all this stuff because I'm like, this is, we never had this many. But we want to thank everyone again for your patience. And we're going to allow our guests to get logged back in and see what happened with that.
It was weird because both of y'all went out at the same time.
You might have set us up and didn't even know it.
I'm sitting here like, hold up now. Why am I the only one just still sitting here?
Well, I know that, especially getting into that story, I think it's so relevant now as we segue from the athletics and how that stuff happens and being in it as mental health for, for men. I think this is going to definitely help segue that way. Um, into that conversation. So while we wait, please make sure that you are sharing the video. If you have any questions, please, please, please go ahead and put your questions inside the chat. We'll make sure that we have a conversation and ask the guest so that he can elaborate more on that. Um,
Yeah. I mean, on that front, while we wait for him to hold up, give me just a second. I got kids in here pounding on something. But as we wait for Mr. Bernard Chandler to rejoin us, it looks like he's trying to jump back in, but the camera's just not catching yet. But I wanted to speak on men's mental health. One, because it's a space that I've been working in for years now. Since 2010, I've been working in the mental health space at one capacity or another since I started my psychology degree back in 2010. And just over the years, um, I've been able to see so many individuals that suffer in silence. So many men, I say individuals, so many men that suffer in silence. It's so often that society tells us, or society,
your
what's the word
um
I'm looking for?
your service is going out.
Hmm, okay. All right. I'm showing the full bars on my side. I don't know.
Okay, now you're good.
I'll just continue. But um, it's like society expects us to just toughen up. There we go.
All right, I don't know what happened. I think that was my connection, friends.
Well,
I thought you was
you
cutting us
and
off
Dr.
because you said,
Hobson
you know what, I'm done.
disconnected
I
at
got
the
something
same
else to
time.
do. We got disconnected at the same time, so we know we about to say something that they need to hear.
We
So
winning.
we want to go ahead and finish up. Continue talking about just that experience for you. Then you started to get into another organization. What was that journey like for you? And I know that you and Brian had both started speaking on the mental health of this mental health month. And so I do want you to talk about just what it felt like with that pressure of expecting to be this certain person and you feeling like you lost the game and you transitioning into something else. You know, I'm sure you had some friends that still had that dream of making it that didn't make it. You know, so
Yeah.
let's just kind of start talking about what was all going on during that time when you got to college before you start realizing, okay, it was time to transition over to something else. What was your mental health like?
Yeah, I think I learned early. Like I learned as a high school junior how to face adversity and um, how to not internalize the fiery darts that can come from people when they're displeased with you, or they don't like some of your decisions or your philosophies. I think I learned really early, and I think that helped set my path for leadership. I think there were like two really defining moments in my life that led up to me like running for a public office and being elected superintendent in Tunica in 2012. And I think that experience as a junior in high school, losing the game, feeling like the whole town was upset with me, I think that was a defining moment. Um, I think um, I think the second defining moment was when Bird and I both got to Bellhaven, and I was saying before we got disconnected that I went to Bellhaven. They were excited for me to be coming, and Bird had kind of hung up football because I don't think he had any offers to go anywhere after we left Kahoma. And Bird is undersized. He's probably about 5'7", 5'8". Is going to outwork everybody, and but he was undersized to play linebacker. And I remember telling the coach at Bellhaven, like, "Hey, I'll come. I'm excited about coming." But my friend Bird is a dynamic player. He's not, he hadn't landed anywhere, but he'll be a great addition to the team. And if you want me to come, you got to bring Bird on too. And he called Bird up. He said, "Look here, man, I got a scholarship for you. My name is my name is Coach Lee. I'm at Bellhaven, and um, I got a scholarship for you." Bird told me that. Now this is what Bird told me. He said, because I wasn't listening on the phone when this was said, but Bird told me he called him. He said that Bird told him, like, "Man, I don't even want to play football anymore. I kind of hung it up." And the coach told him, "Well, man, I don't care if you don't want to play. You got a scholarship. You don't even have to play because Chandler's not
Your
coming unless
friend.
you
We need your
come."
friend.
So
That
fast
boy
forward
flipped
to
the script on you, huh?
yeah, man, it was like, and I really don't know what made me do that. I still don't know. I never intended for Bird to know that. And actually, a couple of years ago, he told me he knew that happened, and
Wow.
I was like, "Who told you that?"
Well, why did you
So
feel you needed to hold that back?
I mean, like in my opinion, I was giving somebody who I felt was worthy an opportunity. I felt like they were pretty high on me, and I was gonna come and do what I had to do because I was on scholarship. But I just felt like, man, like I have some leverage here, like I have some positional power here,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
like I got some social capital with this coach. So how can I leverage it?
Yeah.
And what's the best way for me to leverage it? And I just saw Bird coming on as being just being important to somebody that I considered a friend. And honestly, I thought it would help out the team. Fast forward, he was like a second or third team All American 2 years later.
So he did end up coming.
Yeah, he came. He
And his
shined.
mom,
He was
somebody
amazing.
said, "Boy, are you crazy?
I mean, pretty
you
much.
better you better learn to love football again."
And like I think he was done with it. I think like
Mm.
his like he didn't find joy in it anymore. But his joy got replenished at Bellhaven because he got valued. And like senior year, he had like two or three defensive touchdowns. Was nominated for the Connolly Trophy, which is like the Heisman for
Mm-hmm.
college football players in the state of Mississippi. And like as a linebacker, he was up for the Connolly Trophy same time Patrick Willis was up for it from Ole Miss, who ended up playing for the 49ers. And it was just like a Cinderella story for him. And my career was for all intents and purposes was a failure. Like I didn't throw one touchdown. I didn't run one touchdown in a game. Like it didn't happen. And like I think that was another defining moment for me too, leadership wise, facing a lot of adversity my senior year. My senior year there, Bird was finding his way and like doing an amazing job. And like I was somewhat in a quarterback controversy. I was the only black quarterback competing against other white quarterbacks and great guys. Like they were great guys. And like the team was split. The team was like, now he should be our quarterback. Like he's clearly the best quarterback. And the coaching staff made another decision. And like I just remember, man, like from the perspective of mental health, like man, I really struggled with trying to process what was happening because it came to a point where like I was just working so hard there and just really developed as a quarterback, developed as a leader on the field. And when the time came my senior year for me to actually put 3 years of work in sitting behind other players, learning from other players, doing the strength and conditioning, like I was ready to rock and roll, and everybody could see that, like, man, this dude's ready. Like we can win a championship if this dude is our quarterback. And it just didn't play out that way. Like internal politics and decisions that I'm still not privy to, kept me from being the starting quarterback, even though like well-respected players, would verbalize it in front of the starting quarterback. Like, because my middle name is Steve, so Bird and folks in Tunica would call me Steve. But like, players would say, man, Steve should be the quarterback in front of the starting quarterback. So, it was somewhat of a quarterback.
Did it create any kind of division between you two? Because you're like, look, I just want to play, get my scholarship. I don't want no smoke. And, I feel like anytime our counterparts feel some kind, threatened or, this is unnoticed or unseen, stuff, the trauma or attention kind of goes behind it. What was that like for you? Like during that time when you're like, hey, I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, there were different stakeholders in and around that team interacting with me different ways. The quarterbacks the two white quarterbacks that played ahead of me, were really pretty humble about it. Like I don't think either of them ever postured themselves to say like I should be in front of Steve. Like I know I'm better than Steve type deal. I never really got that from them. I think they embraced the opportunity to play and they played. Like Bird, Bird had a different perception. I think Bird silently resented me about that because in Bird's mind, he's like, hey, he's at the top of his game. He got this second chance. And like he can actually leave college football with some type of championship, conference championship, something. And but we need Steve playing quarterback if we're going to win it. Like we need the dual threat of Steve being able to run and throw and in his leadership vocally, physically, like in workouts, like people just follow Steve. And we've had conversations about that, years after that, where he said, hey man, I silently like was bad at you because like I felt like you were selfish. And hey, I get it. I think to an extent I was selfish. I think when I realized that the bureaucracy and politics and things that were beyond my beyond the knowledge I was privy to were going to prevent me from being a starting quarterback, like I focused elsewhere. I knew I wasn't going pro anyway, so I'm focused on what am I going to be doing next year to make money.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
So yeah, and then with the coaching staff, it was a very man, it was a tension always because there were players questioning coaches.
Of course.
And we would have practice and folks would just see it. They'd be like, there's no comparison. So like I think that really shaped me to once again like be forced to hear the noise but not internalize the noise and still focus on like my mental health, my well-being, and staying the course for my goals. Like I learned early not to like try to keep up with the Joneses in any way. Like I set my own path. I'll chart my own path by myself if I have to. And in just about every aspect of my life, when I've done that, I've looked behind me and there were a lot of people following me. So I realized my calling was leadership. And I leveraged those two experiences with football, and I think they kind of prepared and catapulted me into the challenges of running for a public office and being and winning that public office at the age of 26.
Wow. So let's talk. Let's
That's big.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Nah, I'm sitting over here and I was taking notes. So I didn't have my pen, so I'm taking notes on my phone, and just looking at some of the I guess you would say comparisons, or some of the things that we have in common as far as athletics. I was a four-sport athlete in high school: football, baseball, basketball, and I ran track. But football was where I stood out most. Um, was a starter junior, senior year, won all division, defensive back, so on and so forth. Wasn't quite the athlete to make it to the collegiate ranks. I tried out at University of Southern Miss, but all they were looking for was speed that year, and I was focusing on my foot drills and making sure I can pick the ball off, so on and so forth. So I
Yeah.
didn't make the cut, and thankfully I had the academic prowess to where like I had that to fall back on. So I just focused on my academics, and I had some ups and downs, but eventually I got to where I was supposed to get to. And you speak about leadership, and one thing that I've noticed is typically leaders don't seek to be the leader. They fall into it. And other people say, we love how you operate. We need you in this position. And when I went back to grad school, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And I just fell into these leadership roles. And you mentioned public office. I had like physicians and surgeons telling me, Brian, you need to run for public office. We put the money behind you. We vote for you. I'm like, nah, I'm not trying to have my business all out there like that.
Because it will get out there.
Yes. So, I haven't. I still to this day I have people telling me to run for some type of local public office. It's either that or Brian, you need to get into ministry. So, it's like those types of things you have to understand. A lot of times you may not be looking for it, but when you fall into it, you have to understand that when you have the capacity to serve, everything else is going to start to come, and be there for you. And as far as the mental health component, I look back to my childhood and I started to gain that whole, ability to deal with controversy at a young age as well. I grew up in predominantly white community. I'm in South Mississippi, like South Mississippi, down
Now, where in South
well, I'm
Mississippi?
born and raised in George County, Lucedale.
Okay, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. I'm with you.
That's my childhood, and I've been living predominantly in Hattiesburg for most of my adult life. I lived in Miami for about
Right.
2.5, almost 3 years. But living here in Mississippi, there's various different pockets, especially in the South or in some of the Jackson area, where you can be one of few blacks in an environment. And I grew up with that. I saw racism left and right. I've got a cousin ended up in the wrong community at the wrong time, had his face bashed in with a brick because he was in the wrong community at the wrong time. So I dealt with that at a young age, and eventually I guess that's somewhat what drew me to psychology. So I started to see things happening around me, and studying psychology started to help me make sense of things. Along that same time, I started to venture into the entrepreneurship space. So I started listening to this personal development um, curriculum, various different personal development content, and I was like, this is a lot like this psychology stuff. So I started to match both worlds, and that's what got me to where I am now. But one of the things that I'm just so lasered in on helping the next generation with is really understanding how to deal with your mental health, understanding how not to allow external situations to be internalized and to just disrupt who you are. Like,
Yes.
and one of the main reasons I brought it up at the beginning before we started was because, like, right now I'm dealing with a lot. And as a man, it can become very difficult because most people around you they don't want to hear that. Like if you have
Mm-mm.
obligations, they want the results. You need to get the job
Right.
done or hand it off to someone else. They don't want to hear about your problems. So, I've had to take certain things off my plate. I've had to shift my focus here and there. Um, it's it gets super difficult, but at the same time, I'm just thankful that I've learned how to protect my energy. And I tell so
Yeah.
many people, when you allow the outside to dictate on a consistent basis how you feel and how you start moving, you've
Right.
lost control of your life. So,
Hmm.
I have to put certain things in certain places, and I pour it into these young fellas and young women that we have to get away from for one, like you mentioned earlier, don't be worried about following the Joneses. Like, stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. What is it? Keep up with the Kardashians these days. Like, stop worrying about what they are doing. The they being whoever is the popular people out here that you're seeking
Right.
validation from. You got to find your path. You got to do it the way that you were meant to do it, and that's what will bring you to where it is you're meant to get to. So, kind of on that front, what have been in leadership capacities? What have been some of the things that you've done to exemplify how to deal with life, how to deal with adverse situations and circumstances? Because I mean, we're gonna have to have some conversations offline because being, growing up in Mississippi has very unique challenges. And I started a mentorship program back in 2017. Couple, I say probably about 50 miles south of you in Greenwood. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Flour, Montgomery, and Carroll counties where the program ran. But
Gotcha.
just looking at the differences in mindset in that area compared to here in Hattiesburg, college university, lots of educated people in the space. And then going up there, seeing infrastructure that looks like it's still in the 60s and 70s. Like, what have been some of the things at a leadership capacity you've been able to pour into other individuals here in Mississippi to help them navigate their mental health, during various different trials?
Man, like first of all, I appreciate you for like just sharing your comparable experiences because like in this thing we call like I'm actually right now I'm in a hotel in Des Moines, Iowa because I had some work I had to do up here with principals and assistant principals, building their leadership capacity and also learning from them in the process. But yeah, when I think about brothers and sisters in Mississippi and like how I modeled that. Honestly, I think I've modeled how to take heat, like how to take the attacks from media, how to take um, attacks from the public. Um, Shoot, man, how to accept mistakes I've made and take them in stride, with humility. Um, Model maturity, model restraint. Because there's been more than one time where I didn't want to show restraint, but I had to, and like I'm actually, yeah, it's like as I reflect on it, man, I think that's what I used to tell myself. Like, you're in a fishbowl. More than a few times I was reminded I was in a fishbowl, and being a 27, 28, 29-year-old single man in a public office in a town that size. Every move you make can be scrutinized, and believe me, I know because just about every move I made was scrutinized. And I use some of the greatest challenges I've experienced in that role and in my professional career and the work I do now because storytelling is a commodity. Um, you know, Blueprints, architects, sell blueprints, make blueprints and sell blueprints for a living, right? And I think, our challenges, our failures, the things that we're not necessarily the most proud of, are blueprints. And I think that blueprints that help other folks build their empires, help other folks achieve their goals while avoiding some of the mines that we stepped on as we journeyed through that minefield ourselves. And like I really believe in it. I really believe just in embracing some of the parts of my path that aren't as flattering. and of course, I get to shine on the things that I did well and that are etched in stone as great achievements. Like a number two statewide ranking in kindergarten readiness in the fall of 2014. Tunica, Mississippi was like top 10, ranked number two on the inaugural assessment for kindergarten readiness, and we were the only all black district up there in the top 10. And folks wanted to know why. They questioned why. We had a methodical process that we were implementing that led to that. Or, a 15-point increase in district graduation rate over the course of 3.5 years, and eliminating all F schools. After my last year, we didn't have any F schools in Tunica County, which was something that we couldn't always brag about in the past. So, like there are a lot of great things that came out of it, and there are also a lot of challenges that I encountered, a lot of mistakes I made that I really feel like allow me to build social capital with folks I don't know, with folks that I want to support, with folks that I'm contracted to help, and just with friends and family. I believe those are the stories that shouldn't be suppressed. One of my favorite historical figures is JFK. And everybody, just about everybody, like JFK. Everybody has some love for JFK, but man, he had some tremendous failures in his administration. Whether it was the Bay of Pigs, many people thought that could have been handled differently, could almost send us in the nuclear war, or well, that's the Cuban Missile Crisis. But the Bay of Pigs, like where like 2,000 undercover operatives were in Cuba and got discovered, and to get those folks back, United States government, I believe, had to like basically pay Cuba like $54 million in medical supplies to recover from that botched undercover covert operation. And Cuba's parlayed that, over the last few decades, and Cuba has an amazing, medical ecosystem there, where there are a lot of really, really strong advancements they've made in the medical field because of that $54 million investment from Kennedy's mistake with the Bay of Pigs. So I like to focus on the challenges and pay homage to people for taking that path and showing us the way not to go, because it's secretly they're also illuminating the path we should take.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it's so often, and like I said, I do a lot of work in the entrepreneurship space now, but really focusing on the whole mental component, the psychology behind so much in that space. And so many people, so many people suppress and don't talk about the failures. They don't talk about the journey. And it does such damage because people see the results and they don't see all the journey that got the result. So whenever they go after the result, but they go through the journey, they're like, what's wrong? This is supposed to happen. Yes, it is supposed to happen like that. But most people don't talk about the journey. So that's one of the reasons whenever I go and speak at these schools, especially the high schools, is I always mention how I graduated high school, 3.89 GPA, one of the smartest guys in the class. But after my second year in college, I got academically suspended. So, and I use the word flunky. I'm a college flunky. Like, I got kicked out of college because they hear the accolades before that. They hear, oh, he's got a master's degree, two bachelor's degrees, working on his doctorate, all these accolades. And then I come back and hit him with, I got kicked out of college. So, like, don't just show the good stuff, because a lot of times that those failures, those challenges are the things, like you said, that create that next blueprint.
Oh yeah.
Like, we have to know what hurdle, Dr. Hobson can relate, what hurdle is a little bit misaligned, because, hey, I fell over that hurdle in lane 3, the fourth one. Make sure when you get to that one, like, you lift that leg up a little bit more, because
Mhm.
like, that's the only way the next generation can truly get ahead, by seeing the truth. Don't ask for it to be
Yeah,
easier. Figure out why is it so difficult and increase your skills so that you can get past that difficulty. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. Glad that you
yeah.
mentioned that.
And I would also say, just to kind of piggyback up off of what you both were saying, that we come into this world already with a lot of those stigmas and those expectations of being the best and having to do more and checking these boxes and making sure that this is what success looks like, and you're comparing yourself to whoever you can compare yourself to. And so our community, we put so much pressure on each other, but also on ourselves. And I know that for a very long time I was learning, I've lived my life functioning in dysfunction, because I've only know the hustle. I only know oh, something happened, you just keep going. You just, you never really you don't have the time to really sit and say, like, you know what, I'm not all right. And so I think that we don't allow each other also as Black men and women to create that space for one another, to where, a man can say, hey, I'm not there. And it to be like, okay, cool, you're good. Or for a woman to say, hey, today I'm just not there, without even our even judging each other. Right. Like, oh man, he weak. He always got something going. He a weak dude. Or man, she must be crazy. Right. She got all this stuff going on. And so we don't allow ourselves, but also each other, to have that safe space to say, hey, that we're okay. And I think what helps a lot of us is having the background from athletics, because you learn, you learn how to shake and move and hustle and build relationships and move up and move down, and what adjustments to make and how to think quickly. You learn those hustles, but that can also be a curse as you get older. I know for myself, because maybe things won't go as planned, as if when you're training for that track meet, or you're training for that game, you may be able to see the fruits of your labor. Oh, that boy must be in that gym. Look at LeBron. That boy, he been playing basketball for 25 years, and that boy in shape every year, so he in the gym. Right? But for some people, they don't have that strength to do that, or they don't have that foundation coming from athletics to do that. And so they depend on you and I and Brian to have these stories, because that is their hope. That is their lifeline, they call it. And so I think that even when I wrote a book, Seams of Gold, Discovering Beauty and Brokenness, that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I would walk into a place and everybody would say, man, girl, you must have ran track. And I'm already out of college. I'm just coaching and speaking to coaches now and leaders and stuff like that. But I always believe that, you are your product. So if I'm going to coach you about resiliency and life and coaching and how to be an example to your athletes and how athletes can overcome, I got to look like it. Right. And so, people would come and, oh man, you're so beautiful. Oh man, you're so this and you're so that. And I would go home and I would cry, because I was trying to get out the light. And what I learned is, then that's when I started to see and discover for myself, hey, for a long time, these things have made you feel a certain way, but it's not really how you feel. People see this beauty, but they don't know that you're broken. And you don't even know you're broken entirely. And so I had to sit with myself and realize that there was a lot of things that I needed to speak on that I didn't have an opportunity, because I was that cute girl. I was the one that always had it going together and had bought the first house at 21. And always, so people just saw the results. But in that journey, I was struggling with knowing who exactly I am and what I like and what I want. So when I wrote the book, Seams of Gold, Discovering Beauty and Brokenness, it was for men and women. And the background of it was that a Japanese method of called kintsugi, where they take that pottery and they break it, they seam it with gold or they seam it with silver, and they create this masterpiece that looks like it's broken, but people paid thousands and thousands of dollars for this piece that looks broken. And so what I learned is that we are more valuable when we can take those pieces, broken pieces of our lives, and seam it with grace, seam it with love, seam it with purpose, seam it with all these things. And that's what makes us valuable. It's not the stories that we tell, when we're already sitting up at the top. It's the stories that we tell when we get there, for the people that are looking up to us. And so having people like you, thank God that your background was what it was, because you wouldn't be able to be in these seats in these places that you're in. Because I tell even students now, I say, hey, stop posting everything on social media. You don't know where you're going to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20, even 5 years from now. And people check, they'll go back to what you did in kindergarten.
They'll
Back in
do it.
kindergarten, Chandler kicked somebody and threw a rock at him. Look at him. He's always been a bully. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can flip. You're like, man, I'm 45. I ain't kicked nobody in 42 years. But they will come up with these things. So imagine what our generation right now, when they are ready to transition into being, in the political office or teachers or whatever they want to be, and people they will dig up your skeletons just to make sure. And so, as a Black man, how was that pressure for you? Did you ever feel like, man, they about to, they coming after you, right? They looking at everything, your stuff, your parents' stuff, everybody's history that may not even be directly attached to you, people you hung out with, Bird, everybody else. So what was that conversation, or how was that journey for you, when it's like, do I want to be transparent? Do I want to be, how true can I be to my truth and still serve the community or still serve in these positions? How are you able to, decipher those, your truth, your true truth, your system? Like, what is that like for you mentally?
Yeah, I think I think number one is just being unapologetically me, and like saying like if I feel like this is the right move, I'm gonna make the move, and and I'll deal with whatever folks have to say. I do believe that way of thinking. I had some immaturity with that initially, because if I could have had that philosophy about something. I've had that philosophy about something, and I was dead wrong. Like like I wanted to do this. It wasn't the right decision, but I was just committed to making a bad decision that day, and yeah. So I think that's where I've grown, of course, over the years. But I think what still is true is choosing my own path. Choosing my own path, being willing to be laughed at, being willing to be challenged, being willing to be scrutinized, but always being true to myself. Um, I've actually been blessed to not to experience that adversity early. Those two situations with football were significant. That was like the Teddy Pendergrass song, like the whole town's laughing at me. Like I felt like everybody was either laughing at me or was mad at me. And so I learned early, be like a duck, let that water roll off your back, and keep on moving, because the worst thing in the world is to stop. So yeah, I think the pressure um, of of hearing the noise but not internalizing it is like constant. And like along this vein of mental health, like I oftentimes, like when I'm in circles, I quote who I feel is a great contributor to the Black community and Black philosophy and just Black culture in general. And some people disagree with me, but I think Charlemagne the God is like just an incredible contributor. And one thing he said that really resonated with me when he was interviewing Finesse two times, because Finesse two times had some jewelry that depicted handcuffs, because he has been to prison, and that's part of his story. And one thing he didn't hold back on was telling his story, and that's something I really appreciated. And Charlemagne was like, "Well, don't you think that like having handcuffs reminds you of like, trauma?" And Finesse two times was like, "Hey man, like I wouldn't be here talking to you if it wasn't for these handcuffs, and the path that I went through." And Charlemagne said something that I felt was really profound. Is like, as we as Black people, and even people who are outside of our Black culture, look at us and ask questions like, "Why do Black people do this?" or "Why does Black culture include this?" And what he said was, "Man, as Black people, we take our trauma and turn it into culture." And Like as I think about some things in our community that I'm not very proud of. Like I think about, the relevance of that comment, what do you do when you're oppressed constantly? There's nothing you can do about it. Shoot, you find a way to embrace it and turn it into culture. So it's not as Brian was saying earlier. It's not like eating away at you on the inside because you're internalizing this bad thing that's happening to you over and over again. You find a way to turn it into culture to where you're accepting of it happening because it's outside of your locus of control
that's
to
when
change
everybody
it.
says, "Oh, I'm black." It's like, no, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to. That doesn't make it right. Just because
Exactly.
I always tell people all the time, there's a difference between practice and policy. Even with people that I work at now, it's like, well, we've always, and it's like, well, that's great, but that's something we've been practicing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's supposed to be like that. Just because you're at HBCU doesn't mean you're supposed to act a certain way because we're HBCU, so we definitely have to get out of that mindset of, someone said yesterday, a Jim Crow mindset, of just constantly having this mentality of mediocre. This is just how it is. Life is supposed to be this hard for us, and we're supposed to. Who said that? And then, like you said, when did it become part of our culture? That now that defines. I remember. I don't mean, I'll let you finish. I didn't mean to cut you off. But one of my staff members, I remember we were taking some of this. I was taking some of the stuff down for February, and they said it's Black Month. What did they say? It's why are you taking it down? I said, because February, Black History is over. That was February. We still had other Black, influencers and stuff all on the thing, but as far as the Black celebration stuff, we were taking down. And we always, we are Black History. And I said, what have you created? What impact have you made? Besides, just being Black don't make you Black History. Like, what? I said, what do you know about all these people on here? They all did something. They all had some type of impact. That's history. Now, yes, you are Black, but that doesn't mean that you're part of Black history just because you're Black. Who are you serving? What are you changing? What things are you putting in place? What are you creating? That's Black history. That's something that one day your picture will be up there and somebody would say, I remember his story. It's not just walking around saying, oh, well, like, where are we getting this stuff from? And why are we making this a part of who we are? Oh, girl, we loud. No, we are. No, we are not loud. I'm not loud. And so when we start to do that, for some, the more you tell yourself that's how it's supposed to be, you start thinking that is how it is, and it's not.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecies.
That's real. Yeah. it and the sad thing is, we embrace so many of the negative stereotypes that, because I have a lot of international connections, that people abroad start to think that we are all that way. And I'm like, no, like you can't. They're just like, man, you don't talk Black. What talking Black's supposed, like? What is there a language called Black? It's sad. Like you mentioned it earlier. I used to get called an Oreo when I was younger. You a Black boy on the outside, a white boy on the inside. Why you talk like that? Why you wear your pants so high? Like, why you tuck your shirt in? Like, can I not articulate myself? Can I not have a professional demeanor without not being Black? And it's sad that it has to be white culture if it isn't part of what the hip hop music says that it's supposed to look like, sound like. So we have to continue to do, like you mentioned earlier, we have to continue to map out our own way to say, this is my exemplification of who I am. And you can take from what I am, who I am, you can take from that person, take from that person, but you do you. And it's one of the things that I pour into lots of my mentees that I've always worked with, plus my son, because he would always make reference and certain mentees as well. Like, Daddy, I want to be just like you when I grow up. Because he would see me in media for certain different things that I was doing. His friends would always say, I saw your daddy on TV, or a lot of my mentees would be like, B man, I love how you did that presentation. And be just no, don't be just like me. Be the best version of yourself. See some of the
Love that.
confidence that I bestow, some of the things that like I walk into any room, I don't care how much money the person in that room is worth. I'm gonna talk to them just like I talk to the janitor. Like I'm gonna give you the same. Do that. Be that person. Always walk with posture and know that you're important wherever you go, and greatness will come and get you. You don't have to be that other person who was great in their own right. Walk in your own greatness, and we have to let people. And that's why we have the Black Podcast. Like we are letting people know that we don't all look the same. We don't all work, walk, talk, live our life exactly the same, but we're all great within our own right. And I'm glad that you were able to come and share with us, and the fact that you grew up here in Mississippi as well, and there's a relatability. I can really see how you've become the man that you are by walking the walk and and walking the talk as well, having the confidence to say,
Yeah.
but then also having the wherewithal to do as well, and then all the rest, allow it to be an example.
So how do you right now, being in the role and the things that you're doing, how are you able to um, do you ever find yourself, I guess, playing it safe, or how are you able to convince those around you to, like, hey, maybe this is not something you used to, but just trust me, like, listen to me. you know, how do you get those people that are like, boy, no, you don't know, you don't, you've had whatever life, you don't know my whatever, and how are you able to still reach the people, because we still also need you. You have a unique role, because you're just like a referee. You got two people you're trying to satisfy, but you're never right. Right?
Yeah.
And so you got one group of people like, yay, I love when he's, and then you got another group of like, sell out. You know what I'm saying? So how are you able to be in that space and be like, hey, let me speak one language that we both can understand so that I can get to where I'm trying to be? How are you able to do that? Like,
Yeah. Um, honestly, I think it's just committing to my path and being willing to be scrutinized. And like when I do that, I'm able to just walk in truth. I'm able to walk in my story, walk in my identity, walk in my successes, my challenges, my failures, my insecurities, and not really be too much phased by what anybody got to say about any of it. Over the last week and a half, like last week, I was in Denver all week, co-facilitating, leading a group of about 40 leaders from all over the nation. And there was one participant in particular who was speaking from a deficit mindset about children who were who were in her class, or who were in her school, should I say. And there was a math test up during the presentation, and we were basically walking leaders through how you can make this math test accessible to all students, even if they have some unfinished learning that they need, some prerequisites they need to access it. Basically, not withholding access to high quality opportunities for all students. And this lady was like really adamant. She was like, "You don't understand. You don't understand my kids. They can't do this. They don't understand this concept. They're Afghan immigrants. They do not understand this task that was really related to students graphing the the progress towards saving $7,000 for college if they were saving a certain amount each week. Like that was the task. So, and I asked, I said, you think they're not counting money in Afghanistan? And, she was really adamant about it. And, she kind of cut me off in front of everyone. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, indulge me for a moment. And everyone else act like you're not here. Um, and I told her these very words. I said, In the United States, I know it's called the dollar. In Mexico, I know it's called the peso. In China, I know it's called the yen. Since you know your Afghan students so well, what is it called in Afghanistan? And she kind of went silent. Collectively, I heard people in the room go like, ooh. And that wasn't even my intent. It wasn't my intent. But, like I wanted to make the point that until you know them, don't discount them.
Yeah.
Don't disqualify them, and don't withhold from them. And, by the way, the currency in Afghanistan is called the Afghani. If you replace dollar with Afghani, I got a feeling your students might have the concept of saving money to achieve a specific savings goal. And, like I just walk in that truth, and I'm just willing to be, like I tell folks all the time, hell, if y'all don't like me, don't bring me back. And I just walk in that truth. I walk in what I know to be right. The highest leverage thing I can do to help people is how I try to use my time and my talent. And sometimes it's unpopular.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate to join forces with like-minded folks and like-minded organizations lately that have really fostered my sense of self as a Black man, and in this world where systematic racism is real and we feel it every day, we internalize it and we breathe it and we even perpetuate it because it's our way of life, it's our culture in this country, and we don't know any different. And the organization that I've been fortunate enough to to do some work with, Unbound Ed, has probably been the most impactful organization I've ever experienced, and it's contract work. I'm not even on staff full time.
So you can really say just being around. Say.
Oh man, I get
that's where they messed up at. They're like, we not bringing it back.
and they embrace it. Yeah. They embrace everybody living in their identity, and I think that's how I've gotten through. It's been speaking my truth and being unapologetically me, and having this altruistic spirit to make sure that I'm leveraging my time and my talent to help people so I can leave a legacy. I plan on being here a long time. I love to be here till about 100, but however long it is, I want to leave a legacy. I want folks to look back and say, Bernard Stephen Chandler did some great things, and here's a few of them.
Right. Yeah. And so what do you do? Because I know that it's easy to say, or people may think, it's easy for him to say that, when you're saying, hey, if you don't like it, don't bring me back. If you don't like it, just staying true to who you are, right? That a lot of times as Black people, when we get to a certain place and we make a certain amount of money and reach certain, check certain boxes, we like, man, I can't mess this up. This is a whatever, amount of money contract. I love my lifestyle. So let me just shut the hell up, right? And so we do have a lot of people that we live in this space where it's like, hey, you say the wrong thing, you're gonna be out of there. How did you get to that place that say, or were you always in that space of you didn't care, you just kind of just said what you wanted to say, you were okay with whatever the results? I want you to speak to that, but I also want you to speak to the person who may not have that, be that courageous or that bold, to say, I choose my truth, my peace over this dollar amount, or over this position, or over this level. What do you say to that person? And then also, if you can tell us what you do to continue to make sure that you stay, how do you know when to say, do you just always say what you want? How do you get in those space? I guess I'm just trying to figure out for those people that may be bold enough and have the means to say what they want, but they just haven't. And then those who may not have the strength or may feel like, I don't want to mess up this opportunity. One Black person here, and it's me. And if I say the wrong thing,
I'm out of
I'm out
of there like this. Yeah, so I think first, I honestly feel like those experiences I named, that experience in high school, that experience at Belhaven, the type of adversity that I went through in those roles, the sets of eyes that were on me, the words that were thrown at me, the situations that where I felt embarrassment, where I felt devalued. It's been so, I've experienced it so much that I've had a lot of at bats with it. And you take so many swings, you get your timing down, the motor skills start clicking, and then you start hitting home runs. And I think that's what happened. I think, I just got postured for that early because of situations that most folks looked at me and kind of shook their head, laughed, or felt bad for me, whatever it may have been. But just like diamonds are made under extreme pressure, and gold is refined under extreme heat. I think it was happening to me early in preparing me for something later. And I think that's where it happened. I think I just developed the capacity to deal with that early because I had situations where I was forced to deal with it. Now, what do I say to the person who is like, has reached, has landed that job in their career where they're making six figures or whatever it is they desire? I'll name, like, I was separated from jobs where I was making six. I mean, not just barely six figures. I mean, well in the six figures, and did it with a full heart. Because when I felt like my values were compromised, when I felt like me as a black man leading in schools or in districts with children who look like me and families who are counting on people like me to make great decisions. When I felt like I had to compromise myself, I'd rather walk away than live in a space where I'm compromised. Now, um, one thing I can appreciate is reflection too. Like, especially when I was superintendent, I made plenty of mistakes. And just being in a space where I could be accountable to for bad decisions, or for decisions that could have gone decisions I could have just been better with. Like that's what I've appreciated. And I think that's growth and development. But when I've been in situations where my values, where I felt like, this just isn't right for me to do this. This is not the right move. I wouldn't be proud telling my family, my loved ones, like, this is the move we're making, and this is why we're making it. So, in the same way that I got that job, hell, I get another one. And if I can't get one, I'll create my own path. And that's really what I encourage people to do. I encourage people to not be afraid of the stereotype associated with, like, you can't bounce around from job to job. Man, we live in a society that is inherently racist, that is built on the foundation of white supremacy. And last time I checked, I'm not white. So I'm going to I'm going to, like, incur some of those challenges that, hell, I didn't sign up for. They just kind of are going to be in my path. And I don't want folks to be prisoners to, like, this idea that I got to stay on this job. I know folks who are not happy with their job and won't look for a job. And, or won't use the skills they have to do what others have proven can be done. Pave your own path. And I really think that's where it is. But I think it's important to have a support system, like, Bird, my other two best friends, Lowe and Turner. Like, we're we call ourselves the Four Horsemen. We all play ball together at Bellhaven, and we have a text thread where we're always encouraging each other. Where as black men, we're not afraid to show our emotions. I'm not able to do that in all spaces, but I have my safe space where I can. And, like, I think as long as you have that, as you have that, like, as long as you have the strength in you to go find another job. Don't dare be a prisoner to something that compromises your values or compromises your integrity. And there's a lot of jobs, there's a lot of organizations out here that will do that. And people who may be watching right now, reflecting on, like, how their current role is putting them in that space. And I just encourage people to, one, use your voice to speak up and speak out about the things that are not right. to the right people. Like, don't let someone stationed in the organization stop you from saying what you feel like you need to say, and give them an opportunity to get it right. And if they don't get it right, you do what you got to do. Like, I wear this Colin Kaepernick lapel when I'm doing work because like it's an outward sign of my inward philosophy, and I believe that, like, all cultures, all voices should be heard and valued. And, like, I know some people look at this and they're already judgmental. They already have an opinion. They already like, well, are you anti-American? Man, I love America. I've been to other countries, and I don't want to live nowhere but America. I appreciate, love the freedoms I'm afforded here in America, but I love America enough, and I think James Baldwin said this. I love America enough to criticize her too, because there are obviously some elements in our country, especially that affect people that look like you and me, Brian, that hey, that need to be addressed. And I would encourage anybody, like, to always assess your values. And if the job you're in, I don't care if it's paying you 50 grand, 100 grand, 150, 200 grand. If you're compromising your integrity or your values, in the same way you found that one, you go find another one,
Exactly.
or you pave your own path so you can maintain what's most important, and that's your integrity and your values. Because if you drop dead on that job today, man, your job will be posted tomorrow.
Yep. That's so real. That is so real. And I think that's a great way to kind of segue because you stay in a place that you're disrespected or unhappy at. Truly, that's going to eat away at your mental health. It's going to eat away at it.
Yep.
And since 2019, when I really started to kind of stand out a little bit in the speaking space, and my social media activity started to show people that I was able to lead pretty well in certain entrepreneurial bodies, I started getting people reach out from all over the world. Hey, we want to put you
Yep.
on the phone with our VP of sales or our global ambassador of this, and they get on there. Well, I generated 4.8 million dollars over the last quarter, and yo, that don't talk to me. Like, that don't move me. I don't care.
Right.
Like, what are your values? What is the mission? Whose lives are you trying to impact? Is it in alignment with what I'm doing? Because if it's not, nice to meet you, but bye bye. And we
Right.
have to, as Black people, we have to be willing to walk away from that money to keep intact who we are. So,
Yeah.
obviously, you've embodied that, and I'm honored to know I got another brother out of Mississippi who out here doing the dang thing. But with that being said, as we get ready to close, what are some of the things you got going on right now? You have any workshops, any books out, or anything that you'd like to kind of just give a little plug on?
Now, you know what? I will yield because I don't have any books. I don't have a podcast of my own or anything, but I will yield to some folks who are doing some great things. Um, uh, uh, a Zulu warrior princess, is the way I look at her. But the CEO of Unbounded, Lacey Robinson, um, just recently dropped a book that I really believe is, yeah, I think it's just further incubating this, like, this honestly a new Black renaissance. If I have to be like, I feel like there's not many spaces where people like me, people like you can show up as our authentic selves, and I think she's created an ecosystem with Unbounded and the team that she has around her, and the values that she speaks about and demonstrates. Man, it's just powerful. So I would yield to Lacey Robinson's new book. I actually have a copy of it over here. Give me one moment. Let me grab it.
Well, I gotta grab this charger real quick myself.
Yeah, her book is titled Justice Seekers, and Like I love to engage in conversation. I love the debate. Reading is like verbal communication is what I appreciate the most. Like reading to myself isn't as enjoyable as like talking about a text with other people. But this is definitely one that focuses on something that I think is front and center for all of us right now, especially in the field of education, and it's focusing on pursuing equity, especially for children of color. And that's the work that I live. That's the work I've committed to. That's work that's clear and present for me. Out in the field and at home. And yeah, I'll yield my time to that, and encourage everyone to go out and get their copy of that and dive in and ask the provocative questions and start the conversations around some of that content, because what gets talked about gets solved, and what gets suppressed gets ignored. And I think talking about what needs to be talked about is more than half the battle.
Got it. You can still hear me, right?
I can, yep.
All right. Yeah, I'm having my battery almost died, so I think it's kind of shut my camera down. But give me the title of that book one more time, because I want to be sure to drop it in our comments so
Absolutely.
our guests can see.
Yeah. Justice Seekers
Justice Seeker.
by Lacey Robinson.
And was that you said Lacey Robinson?
Yeah, Lacey Robinson.
Robinson. All right. I'm
L
definitely gonna look it up.
C E Y.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, I'm still frozen. We're still frozen on my end, but we're gonna go ahead and that's a wrap for today's session. I want to thank you again, man. And you mentioned you don't have a book. Honestly, I'm sitting up here. I'm thinking I might need to hit this brother up. We might need to write something together, like because I've got plenty of writing in my background. Getting to the doctoral level in in any field,
Mm,
you got to do a lot of writing. So I haven't written anything of length here recently, but I feel to be able to partner up with the brother here out of Mississippi that's been able to go through certain ranks and accomplish certain things that the masses that look like us may have not been able to accomplish. Kind of put together a
right.
collaborative of stories, of experiences, of something just to be able to kind of inspire that next generation or whoever is seeking to get to that next level.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, it was a pleasure again to have you. Definitely look forward to following up and seeing how we could potentially do something at a different capacity with one another. I'm seeing that you're here out of Mississippi. It'll definitely be something a little bit more feasible for me than some of our previous guests. But be looking out for an email from us. Shoot me over or shoot over to Dr. Hobson or your contact number, your phone number, if you can as well, and she can get it to me.
Okay.
And my computer is frozen up now, so I can't put mine in the chat. But just thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to what the future beholds.
Man, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you for the work you're doing um, to spread this type of communication and to amplify voices like mine. And man, hey, it's admirable work, and I'm just glad to do my part with it today.
Yes, sir. Well, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you again. Keep doing the good work. We're gonna be in touch. And for those of you guests who are watching, pardon our man. Today has been the day of technical glitches. My guest, Dr. Hobson, is trying to come back in right now, but my screen is frozen. I can't let her in. But we'll see you guys same time, same place for our next episode. Guys, make sure you look out for this book by Miss Lacey Robinson, Justice Seeker. And we shall see you guys on the next one. Y'all have a good one. Take care.
Take care.
Yes, sir.